Let's go!
Fish Stripes Live, presented by La Pop. Eli Sussman hosting for one of the few times in recent memory. I finally got my lighting figured out. I think I got my microphone figured out. You guys will be the judge of that, whether or not I have my setup optimized more so than I have in recent months. I'm feeling good about it. And so far, it's a more intimate stream than usual, at least for now. I'm joined by Alex Carver, of course, from Fish on the Farm. And Sean Miller, he's a returning guest. He's been on here before, hosts the Marlins After Dark podcast, which is the opposite of what we do. When he does a show, it's usually a post-game late night situation, and it's easier for him because of the later time zone as well. And the perfect two guys, if we were going to start with a smaller panel, it would have to be with you two that have a full appreciation of this franchise's history, because it is Flashback Friday, just the second one that they've done so far this season. And Sean dressed for the occasion, as have I. This is the new shirt we have from Breaking Tea from Jazz, as photographed 2 weeks ago during the first Flashback Friday. So you can get that at breakingtea.com/fishstripes. But this is also the debut of this new Marlins museum. So as we're still waiting some details on exactly what is in this museum and what it looks like and whether or not exactly what the memorabilia is, what did you guys think? We'll start with Sean about this, the general principle behind this for an organization, especially in recent years, that hasn't done much to recognize or celebrate its history. Now, and putting in this installment right near section 29 in the Long Depot Park.
I think it's a great idea. I can't wait to get there and see it. As you mentioned, I'm in a later time zone, so it's going to be a while before I'm out there. But they've needed this for so long. I mean, going back to when the stadium opened, you'd be walking around and wondering, where's the history? And you'd walk by the Orange Bowl mural. That was pretty much it, which is important history for Miami sports, but not all that, Marlins, love that you were looking for. I have really high hopes for what they can do with this. It's long overdue.
I think you're muted, Eli. I can't hear you.
I'm muted myself. Just take it from here about your thoughts about the Marlins Museum. I know
no, Sean pretty much
clamoring for.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean pretty much got it. It's something that fans have been asking for. Jeter years and previous, they really didn't do a great job at honoring this franchise's history. It's been around for 30 years. It's one of the younger franchises in Major League Baseball, but that doesn't mean that things didn't happen here. And I think Conine coming in was kind of prevalent, or Conine coming back in was kind of prevalent to this. We talked to him during the preseason, and he was really, really championing, just honoring this franchise's history and everything that happened here before now. So to bring this history from Pro Player Park or Pro Player Stadium or Joe Robbie Stadium or the million other names that it's had to Long Depot Park is important. And it's important for people like me that grew up with this team, that moved away, and then that came back, and to see that's pretty much gone. It was when I first moved back to South Florida, it was kind of like, wait, why? Where did we go? Like, where did this team's history go? It shouldn't go away. It shouldn't have gone away, and I'm glad that it's back. So I, like you guys, have not seen what's in this museum, but the fact that it exists is another good step on top of the banners that they did last year as well. Just another good step to bringing the history back. Flashback Fridays as well, which we'll see another one tonight. Charlie Huff back at the stadium is huge. I saw him throw out the first pitch of the groundbreaking for Lone Depot Park. Hasn't been back since, but he's back tonight, and that's super cool. So, to see these guys back together and honoring this franchise's history is important, and it's a step that has been missed in years past, but they're not missing it this year, which is important.
Right. And we were bantering about this right before going live. The announcement, or this was a marketing email that went out about Bartman Appreciation Weekends. This is still 2 weeks away. So this will be the next Flashback Friday when the team is home again, when they're facing the Cubs, obviously, and 20 years after that infamous moment. Kind of a strange way to phrase it, a provocative way to advertise it by putting Bartman in there, even though the guy who inadvertently helped the Marlins flip around that entire series and make that first World Series possible. So you think this is a fair way to market it, Sean, or is this a little bit desperate just to pull somebody in there who wasn't actually involved directly for either of the teams during that 2003 NLCS?
Well, I mean, I don't think we're going to see Steve out there. It's probably not fair to the Bartman clan, but I think it's fun. It's mixing it up. This is playing right into fans are fun. They have opinions. So on social media we see these kind of playful banter like this all the time with this. No, I think having Bartman Appreciation Weekend, it'll get a bit of a feisty crowd out there, which we're going to have from all the transplanted Midwesterners out there anyway to watch the Cubs. So this might, give us a fighting chance there to have some Marlins fans chomping back, remembering the contributions of Mr. Bartman 20 years ago.
Yeah. And just on time, I can finally use this graphic that put together for both of our guests, both Sean and Ethan Bauer on the left side. Ethan came onto my radar when he wrote this really great column for the Miami Herald about his Marlins fandom. And he's no longer in Miami. He is all the way up in Utah. And that's actually really convenient timing. That's why I wanted to have him on for this particular stream. Ethan, glad you figured out the technical side of this and can join us. How are things going over there?
They're good. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. I think I'm at the office right now, and I think the Wi-Fi here was just blocking the connection for some reason. So I'm on my phone hotspot now, but it seems to be all good.
Having you on, before we get into some more conventional Marlins stuff, the timing of this could not be any more convenient, because just a few days ago, Jeff Passan of ESPN kind of blew the story up about Salt Lake City looking into forming a committee with some of the high-powered people around there that have connections there to bring an expansion franchise to the city in the near-term future. As he noted right in the reporting, of course, you have a big professional sports franchise in the Utah Jazz. There's the AAA team, the affiliate of the Angels, that plays in Salt Lake City. But beyond that, I think you could obviously tell us a lot more than us about what do you think about it as a market for a major league franchise? And do you think that if it comes to fruition, would you flip your fandom from the Marlins to your local team if this ever actually got done?
To take the last question first, certainly not, for one reason, because if this does happen, there's a very good chance I won't be in Utah by then, because my wife is in school here, and when she's done, we're probably planning to move back to somewhere in Florida, although I would still be really even more excited to visit Utah again if that were the case. But yeah, as far as the plan, I was just talking with one of my coworkers about it. It's kind of interesting timing, because not that long ago, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, the owners of the Bees, the minor league team of the Angels, announced that they are building this brand new stadium for them down in a suburb here called Daybreak. And so the owners of that team were also heavily involved in Jeff Passan's story as the potential owners of this MLB franchise if it comes here. The same family also owned the Jazz. They recently sold the Jazz for, I believe, $1.6 billion. So pretty experienced sports ownership group. It is just interesting timing, because they had to be thinking about this MLB expansion thing at the same time that they were working on those plans to move the minor league team and build a new stadium for them, which just seems odd to me, because I have a hard time, where they're building that stadium versus where they want to build this expansion stadium. It would be a lot closer together than you would see with like the Marlins Stadium in Jupiter or something like that. Like they'd be not in the same city, but like very, very close. And I just don't see how you'd end up sustaining both of those. I do think it's a really passionate sports market. I mean, Jazz games, obviously they have smaller attendance than a baseball stadium would, but consistently selling out games there. Obviously, college football is huge here too. BYU constantly sells out their 60,000 seat stadium down in Provo. The big questions that obviously are going to come up is as far as Sunday games, you know, Utah being a very not very alcohol friendly state and very church going state. You know, how is that going to affect attendance on Sundays and even something like beer sales? I know that's been brought up a little bit. I feel like that's really the big question mark. But I mean, obviously I'm pretty biased as somebody who lives here, but it seems like they have a lot going for them in their bid. I mean, they are always touting the fact that Utah has the youngest population of any state. It's the fastest growing state. It's got a really, really strong economy right now. And so on top of all that stuff, I was kind of struck when this story came out, just how developed their pitch seems to be. Like they already have a tract of land where they want to build this stadium. They've got the investment from this ownership group, or potential ownership group that has a lot of experience in sports ownership and a lot of deep pockets. They're kind of like the Rick Case of Salt Lake City. Like they have a bunch of car dealerships all over the place, so you see their names everywhere, right? And then also you've got the governor is on board. You've got the mayor of Salt Lake City on board, and they're from, you know, different political parties, so maybe don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but they seem really united about this. There's a lot of unity about this pitch. So I think that's got to be pretty exciting. Obviously, they have a lot of competition, and a lot of other cities have been developing this, I think, for longer than they have. But yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about it.
Justin Bohr, for people that are just listening to this, 2019, he was with the Angels organization that year on a minor league deal. And he spent part of that year with the Salt Lake Bees. I think he had a really torrid stretch in the middle of that where he hit 6 home runs in the middle of the week. That was his first year outside of the Marlins. So that's currently the pro baseball presence that they have in Salt Lake. We just had Alex Krutchik pop in here. He's at the ballpark doing our coverage tonight. He'll be back, I imagine, really soon to do his press box report because he's the one covering for us at the ballpark tonight. I think in the meantime, really quickly, we could look back at this Phillies series for the Marlins. And the last game in particular, that was about as satisfying a win as they've had during this short season so far, taking 2 out of 3 from the Phillies in Philadelphia on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And that's despite Sandy getting his ass kicked in that first game, allowing one of the worst starts of his entire career to that point. We'll stick with you, Ethan, on this, assuming you got a good taste of this series. Outside of the Luis Arraez cycle, I know that obviously is on top of everybody's mind, and that has been heavily discussed. Is there anything in particular about this series that stood out to you for better or worse from this Marlins team?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't missed a game so far this year, so I definitely have some thoughts, specifically in that second game. Again, like you said, the cycle got all the attention, but I really liked that game because, for one thing, I felt like that was the at least to me, the lineup that I sort of wanted to see from the beginning of the year, with Stallings at catcher, Garcia on the bench, Gurriel at first base, Cooper at DH, at least for the beginning of the game. And I think you really saw the potential of the team in that game, even outside of Arraez. He obviously, you know, really stole the show, but you saw a lot of sort of clutch, timely, extra base hits from some of these new additions. Yuli Gurriel had a really nice game. Luzardo pitched really well again, and the bullpen looked really, really solid. So it seemed like a game where a lot of things came together and a lot of things went right, and it was just sort of enjoyable to watch all the way through, which is something that I feel like is the most frustrating thing to me as a Marlins fan, is when they're bad, they're like really, really bad, like unwatchably bad. And so it just felt like, you know, throughout that whole game, it was like, this is what they could be when everything goes right. And so I'm really hoping that we see more of that in the coming weeks. Yeah,
it's just like to your point, Ethan, it's just the the ability to bounce back. Like, they got their ass handed to them in that first game with their ace on the mound. And then they come back in the second game and they make history, which is amazing for all of us here that know how close the Marlins have gotten to this milestone. I talked to Sean about it right after it happened that day on his show, but like how close they've gotten. And then they come back from such a demoralizing defeat. And then Luis Arraez makes team history. And then Edward Cabrera in the last game was as best as we've seen him this year. I still have my feelings about him. Didn't have the fastball again, Eli. I know we've been clamoring for it, but didn't have it again. Relied mostly on his curveball in that start, which was very good. But you just want to see him put it all together. And yeah, he pitched off the curveball in that start. Didn't pitch off the fastball. Again, he pitched off the curveball. It worked. But you just kind of worry about like, hey, what's this guy going to be start to start? Like, is he going to be pitching off one of his best breaking pitches, or can he get the fastball back? So that's what we got to see about Edward. But yeah, to come back and win the series after such a demoralizing first game defeat is very encouraging for me. And a good place for this team to be as they go into the series with Arizona.
Yeah. Well, we have Krutchik on here. We're going to bring him in for I think this is our third stream Marlins press box report of the season. So he's here on Flashback Friday. First thing, Krutchik, I think people want to know about the museum. You were there like as soon as they cut the ribbon on it. Did you actually have time to poke your head inside and go around, or was that like overlapping with Skip's availability?
Yeah, I haven't had time yet. Right after this, I'm actually going to go downstairs, take some videos, take some pictures, maybe talk to a few people that are down there, post on my Twitter. Unfortunately, as soon as they cut the ribbon, it was 4:25. Had to run downstairs, talk to Skip. But I'm glad I did because we got a little bit of insight as to the lineup tonight. Not sure if you guys already spoke about that or not, but I was able to hear some things that he told us. But I'm excited to see it. From what I'm hearing from other people that have looked at it, it's pretty cool in there. So I'm itching to get back down there.
Well, we have you the injury updates that we have that went out earlier today with Sixto, with Johnny Cueto, with Joey Wendell, etc. What of those stood out to you that you think is of most interest to people?
It's a very basic answer, but anything involving Sixto Sanchez is always going to open your eyes a little bit. Off the top of my head, is this the deepest he's gotten into this process so far?
Yeah, we think so. He's done live batting practice, and now this is like a tiny baby. Not you want to even call it like a baby step, maybe a baby crawl in the right direction. Now that he's in extended spring, I guess.
Right. So for him to be able to throw in, I guess what is considered a competitive game. I don't know if extended spring training there's wins and losses necessarily, but certainly it's a step up from live BP in a controlled setting. This sounds like it's going to be a legit game. It's not necessarily a scrimmage, so I'm excited to see what that's going to be like. Excited to see and hear how he does up there. Besides that, happy to see that Joey Wendell is doing defensive drills, hitting off the tee. Excited that Johnny Cueto's getting back on a mound. Excited that Steve Okert is pitching in a competitive game. So it seems like everyone except for JT Chagua is doing pretty well. So excited to see that everyone's making progress with that.
And you mentioned like the lineup notes for tonight. They're going, I think we'll get to that later in the show, how it's 100% righties, but the obvious absences are Jazz and Arraez. So any notes on those particular guys that obviously everybody was looking forward to seeing, and guys that have played every single game up until this point?
Yes, so this is Jazz's first day off. Skip basically said that with the day off yesterday that the whole team had, scheduled day off for everyone, he wanted to kind of give him a, quote, 2-for-1, which basically he only misses one game, but because of the day off yesterday, he gets to miss 2 days. Just wants to keep him fresh. Kind of said the same thing with Luis Arraez. He got a lacerated finger on Wednesday with sliding into home head first. And then we saw later in the game, I think it was the 8th or the 9th inning, he then kind of grimaced when he was swinging the bat after a pitch. So I think after that, Skip just wanted to give him a couple days off. Talking to Arraez before the game. He didn't seem too concerned. Skip also doesn't seem too concerned. He said there's no structural damage, and he did say he is available tonight if they need him to be. Just wanted to give him an extra day off. And I guess against the lefty Madison Bumgarner, I know Arraez isn't bad against lefties, but against the lefty, maybe get the righty in there if you could. Same with Jazz, I'm sure. If you're going to give him the day off, give him the day off against the lefty.
Yeah, even though Bumgarner at this stage of his career, I mean, he barely qualifies.
Right, at this stage in this career, maybe just let them do it. Just let them play, but,
Yeah, we'll get you out of here, of course, with your series predictions that you have for this series. You know how it works. How many games the Marlins will win? Who's going to be their series MVP? What do you got?
So I'm going to go with Marlins winning 2-1. I think that the Diamondbacks have been playing pretty good this year, but I think a little bit of it is luck. I think a little bit of it is running into some early season luck. It's the Diamondbacks are weird because they're at the top of their division, but the players that are supposed to be playing well are not the ones that are getting them there, it seems. So I'm going to say Marlins 2-1. MVP is going to be hard because I was going to say Arraez as an easy answer, and of course he's not playing today, so it'll be hard for him to make up ground only playing 2 games. I'm going to go with Trevor Rogers. I think tonight is the night that he's going to finally figure things out. He's not going to have control issues tonight. That's just me seeing what I saw in spring training and thinking there's no way that he can possibly continue struggling. I think this is the game that he gets back on the horse and figures things out.
All right. That's Alex Krutchik from the loud Lone Depot Park press box. Enjoy the game. His recap will be up on the site later tonight. See you, man. Thanks a lot. There we go. He's got to learn to put the headphones in. We need to share our best practices as a staff, because when a couple of our guys go there, they have the perfect headset that it's like they're insulated in a little room. But that's the true experience. And it's usually not as loud in there as Carver knows and other people know. It's not.
Yeah, like for an Arizona game, I'm surprised it's that loud for an Arizona game, but it seems pretty wound up in there. I don't know what's going on, but yeah.
Yeah. So just one other word about let me get to those injury updates one more time. I found them kind of interesting. I was thinking maybe we'd see Steven Okert back with the team today. He last pitched on Wednesday in Jacksonville, and he pitched great. That was after another rehab outing a couple of days prior that he pitched great. My best guess now is that he's going to pitch tomorrow, and I think this is just a situation where they want him tested on back-to-back days. So my best guess is he pitches tomorrow, pitches Sunday, then he gets a day off, and then returns to the team for the next series, probably on Tuesday. That's my best guess. And with JT Chargois, this is not surprising, but it is unfortunate. He had that oblique strain, in case people were not familiar with it. So you need to take a certain amount of time off from throwing when you have those. And then it's, even for a reliever, it's kind of a slow buildup into getting back on track again. So I don't think we'll see Chargois until sometime in the month of May. And at least Cueto was making baby step forward. There was that very ominous report from the Miami Herald a few days ago about his preparation and his communication with the team. But he seems now to be in the course of his buildup. So we'll probably see him at some point during the month of May as well. But yeah, circling back to the Sixto thing. Well, Ethan, I'm curious about how you feel about Sixto, as we've talked about him like ad nauseum over here the last couple of years, because I was so high on him as a pitcher, like a pure prospect before he debuted and after he debuted. Of course, he has been completely derailed by this shoulder thing. We've barely seen anything of him except for how he looks in street clothes and how he looks doing like this slow throwing motion. How much faith do you have in him being any sort of contributor this year or beyond for the Marlins?
Oh, man, I think it's just about impossible to say. I mean, he obviously looked so good back in 2020, so exciting about his future at the time. And then obviously since then, he's just been so just off the radar. Like you said, nobody really has seen any of him. Nobody really knows what he's going to look like. And so obviously I'm hopeful that he can return to what we saw in 2020. That would be such a huge boost. But I think it's impossible to say. Hopefully, I mean, I best case scenario, I guess, is he goes out there and probably looks a little rusty at first, but by the end of the season, or if not sooner, manages to work his way back to some semblance of what we saw before. I think that's the best case scenario that we can probably hope for, and certainly what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Anything extra
It's
on
the
that?
favorite
Sean?
drinking game of Marlins Twitter. Sixto Sanchez side work updates, throwing from the mound, stretching. It's but I do agree with the sense that does seem to be the farthest. So I guess there is some encouragement in that. I'd love to see them just as, to me it feels like just make him a reliever and just like commit to just less taxing, less your work out his arm. They seem to have plenty of other pitching options that have surpassed him in the organization in terms of depth. Obviously, we still have him, but I think that would be his best path forward is doing that. But I'm also I'm not going to believe it until I see him striking out a batter in a minor league game that there's a chance that he will wear a Marlins uniform again.
Before we went into that press box report, we were talking about like the last series, and before we go to break, this is a general overview of where the team is like 2 weeks into the season from Baseball Reference. Like in that top corner, you see the game-by-game results and their run differential. And then in that bottom, those are the players from left to right ordered by their wins above replacement to this point in the season. Well, first, this is the test for a casual fan. If they could actually identify everybody by their faces to this point in the season, I think most of them can. But this was just curious to me. I just wanted to like pop this up and get like a general snapshot of whether it aligns with my own perception of these guys, with Arraez being the clear number one at this point, Jesus Luzardo, then Garrett Cooper, Dylan Floro, my guy Dylan Floro, and then that fifth one, that is JT Chagua, who we barely had any chance to get to know before he got hurt. Then Edward Cabrera, Yuli Gurriel, AJ Puck, Jorge Soler, Matt Barnes, John Birdie, and Braxton Garrett in that order. The one thing I want to admit to this point in the season is that Yuli Gurriel is surpassing my expectations. I thought he was completely done as a viable big league player based on what I saw last year, and then in a small sample during spring training. That I thought he kind of just checked out of being a guy that actually is going to contribute to your team on the field. With this Marlins team, they were so desperate for just having any kind of backup first baseman that they brought him in, of course, at the last minute. Ended up making the roster because none of their other internal solutions stepped up to back up Garrett Cooper. And when he's been playing, he has been raking. He hit his first home run of the season in Philly. His defense, which looked pretty good in spring, has continued to look very good at that position. There is some value to that, even when you're at first base. I just need to give him some credit, give him his flowers. 38 years young. He's going to be 39 in June. Is there anybody else for you guys who has particularly surprised you in a good way through these first couple weeks of the season? Could be anybody.
I mean, maybe not surprising, but you got to love what you see from Luzardo. I mean, this guy is a guy that struggled through his minor league career with his control and command. Struggled last year, as we saw with the A's. He was up and down. And then this year, man, he's here and he's proving that he's just ready to be that number two pitcher. He's been so good. Maybe not a surprise because I think a lot of us were kind of expecting him to make this bounce back. But, man, he's been really good. So I would say him. Yeah, and like you said, I guess Gurriel would be the main one. I mean, they've tried this with a couple of different guys. Iglesias, who knows where he is? I don't know where he is. Hopefully he gets back to AAA soon is what you would hope. They traded to Gotti. I think to a lot of us that was like the signifier that, okay, Iglesias is ready and he's back, but he's yet to be activated. So I'm not sure what's going on with him. Perhaps he's in extended spring training, but I'm not sure. But yeah, for these guys that they made this kind of just a leap on, these older guys that they just made this leap on to try to get them back to form. Yeah, Gurriel's been good, man. And I believe the oldest guy on the team. And he's been super good when he has played. Probably not going to be a starter ever again with his age and everything that's there. But when he's played, he's good and he's doing what he was asked to do here. So, I agree with you. I'm very surprised to see that a 38-year-old player like this has come in and been as effective as he has on both sides of the baseball. So encouraging. And the Marlins got him for next to nothing, which is also advantageous for the Miami Marlins. So, he's been good.
as we see here, Isaac brought himself onto screen without authorization. That's supposed to be the host call, and I'm the one that's hosting this and carrying the show to this point. So I was going to bring you on after the break, but this is actually a good time because you did put in an article about some takeaways from the Marlins season to this point, positive takeaways. And I already told these guys, like, Arraez is kind of the given. We already know how special he's been, how he's exceeded even the highest expectations, how what he's doing is otherworldly. Could you sum up the other positive stuff that you saw in that article and the things that you think, as you said, that why this is that Marlins fans should probably be delighted the way that this first couple weeks has gone, given the level of competition that they faced these first 2 weeks?
Yeah, so the only other thing that I mentioned on the offensive side of the ball has got to be Jorge Soler, and it really does look like he sort of regained that 2021 form. And if he can be, even 3/4 of that for this team, that'd be ginormous. And then obviously for me, the bullpen, I think you got to give credit to where credit's due, coming off that game on Wednesday where they had 5 shutout innings, helping, I think it was Edward, who, had, I heard you guys talk about it already. He had his best start of the year. But yeah, the bullpen puck has looked great. It's so weird to not have, such a scary 9th inning so early in the year, like in years previous. And then the other guy I want to mention is Braxton Garrett, who really looked pretty good against Philadelphia, in my opinion. So I think those 5 guys, Braxton's obviously going to have to step up with Cueto being ways away. But for me, in that article, I summed up the bullpen has just been ginormous for the team. I know their numbers aren't great. I think that as a team, bullpen ERA is like 5 point something. But the high leverage guys in Chagua, Puck, Barnes, I'm missing someone. Tanner Scott as well has even looked okay as of late. His last outing was 1 inning, no runs. So those are the main positive takeaways, in my opinion.
Last
how
outing
about
for
that Andrew Nardi? That one.
Yes,
Andrew
yes,
Nardi.
thank you. Yes, last
Nardi.
outing for Andrew Nardi. Please mention that.
Nardi looks delicious. I'm missing someone else too, but it's been a swell bullpen so far.
It's a Nardi party again.
Yeah, Nardi, striking out the side with that fastball. Maybe he's better than Alex Vesia, huh?
So with that, we will take a very quick break. 30 seconds. We'll be back on the other side to we're going to get, I think we have some good quality picks of the museum. We'll get into that. But then, of course, the series and all the storylines involved Marlins D-backs coming up these next 3 games. So stay with us. Welcome back. Fist Stripes Live, presented by Le Pop. I'm going to grab the screenshot real quick of Charlie Huff at the ribbon cutting ceremony from a couple minutes ago. The Marlins just dropped this 30-second hype video for the museum. And man, he does look his age for sure. Consider. But
yeah, he was old when he threw out the first pitch in '93. So imagine now.
There we go. So this was just from a couple hours ago at the ballpark with him and Jeff Conant. So that's going to be, it's right near section 29, they said, at the ballpark. We'll get some better looks at it, I guess, in the as this night goes on and in the coming days. But we already covered the segment on this and how, just generally a sorely needed dimension of the ballpark that was missing that they finally added for this 30th anniversary season. What else do we want to get into?
Fun fact about Charlie Huff, because he's throwing out the first pitch a little later on tonight, here soon. Pretty sure he's one of 2 players that ever played for the Marlins that were born in the state of Hawaii. Him and Jordan Yamamoto are the only 2 that come to mind.
Remember that. Yeah.
So yeah, he was actually born in Hawaii, lived in California, and coached for I think it was the Angels for a while, or Dodgers, one of the 2. After he stopped playing. Cool to see him back, man. Like I said, first time I've seen him since the groundbreaking at Lone Depot Park. So yeah, it's super cool to see him back. But I agree with you. Not a young man, but looks like he's doing well though. So that's good. Glad to see it.
As we enter what they're calling the Suntan Classic, that's kind of forced.
I don't understand.
But That's just a reference to the climate in both Arizona and in Miami, I guess.
That's such
More
a stretch.
importantly, yeah, it is, as they show here, it's another opportunity for that Zach Gallen and Jazz Chisholm trade to be rehashed once again. They faced each other previously when they had, I guess it was last year, right? When they're both healthy at the same time. And Gallen got the better of that matchup.
Nope. Now
they are on Sunday. Sunday is when we're going to get Gallen versus the Marlins and Sandy on the other side of that as well. With Jazz resting today, that's a pretty clear indication, of course, that he's going to be playing the rest of the series, including on Sunday at this point. So that's always a storyline as well. This Diamondbacks team, though, they have a lot in addition to Gallen. I mean, at this moment, they are in first place in the National League West. They had, in most people's opinion, the top prospect in baseball entering the season in Corbin Carroll, and he's now under an $100 million deal. But Jazz is envious of the contract extension that Carroll already got so early in his career. Well, the Marlins are kind of like reluctant to get into negotiations with him. But so with this series, anything else that sticks out to you about this Diamondbacks team, Isaac, looking at them to this point in the season based on how they finished last year as well? Like, how does it compare to like some of the other opponents that Marlins have faced these last couple weeks?
Yeah, I don't want to say they're as good, as the New York Mets or the Minnesota Twins or even the Philadelphia Phillies, but there are some fun names that I'm really excited to see up close in person. I'll be there on Sunday. So I'm very excited to watch Gabriel Moreno tonight. I remember he was a former Marlins target when he was with Toronto, and he went over to Arizona in a trade. I remember when I think it was this offseason, Marlins Twitter was looking for Christian Walker to be a Marlin, and he's not off to the hottest of starts. And you mentioned Corbin Carroll. I cannot wait to see him in this outfield. I believe he's playing center tonight. Oh, he's playing right field tonight, actually. But I'm very excited to see him roam around, steal a couple bases. It's a pretty fun team. And once, Walker gets going, they have one of the better players in baseball, or used to be, in Ketel Marte. This team can be pretty good. Obviously the guy going tonight is probably in his last legs of his career. But it's a fun team to go up against. And not to mention Alec Thomas, who, played at the WBC for Mexico. He's another fun player that has yet to get it going. But, if all these guys get going, they could be a pretty darn good team. Unfortunately, it's a tough division for them. So maybe best case, he can be third in the NL West by year's end.
Man, give this team a couple of years and they're going to be so good. Like you mentioned, Isaac, Corbin Carroll, Gabriel Moreno, and then you look at their minor league system, they got Jordan Lawler and Drew Jones. Like they have so many long-term pieces on this team that maybe they won't be that great this year, but they're going to be good in the future and they're going to be a force. And they have a chance to prove it this year. They got some really good position players in this lineup, and then they're backed up by, of course, Madison Bumgarner and some veterans in the rotation and pitching staff. So, man, this team could be really good in a couple of years. Will it be good this year? Remains to be seen, but this is their chance to start to prove that, hey, this young talent can succeed. So this is a fun team, especially from a perspective of what I do with young players. The very young team, but this could be a really, really good team in the future. So I'm excited to watch it as well.
It's another edition of a sibling rivalry between the Gurriels, between Yuli and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. There's almost a decade separation between them. I looked at their career numbers. It's funny how the career slash lines are almost identical too, to this point in their major league careers. And Gurriel is a name that at various times the last couple of years, he was floated as a Marlins trade target with the Blue Jays in a pitching for hitting type of deal as well. And another smaller storyline to me is Evan Longoria. This past offseason, I think Longoria was somebody that they were kicking the tires on in free agency before they went with Gene Segura. It's a tiny sample, but Gene Segura has been one of the worst players in baseball to this point of the season. And Longoria, he's not playing every single day, but when he does play, he rakes as well. And he's playing again tonight. So from that aspect, I guess that's another small plot line to follow.
Yeah, jeez. He's OPSing over 1,000, Evan Longoria. Jeez. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, and the guy they got rid of that went to the Brewers is doing a lot better than Segura as well, to bring that up. So I know Isaac will appreciate that. So yeah, third base hasn't been the best spot for the Marlins so far this year, but hopefully they figure it out.
As I told my good friend over at the Miami Herald, Cody Morris set for the 2024 third base opening day job. It's going to happen.
It's also the fact Miami went 1-5 against this team last year.
Yeah.
That was remember, just as stuck in my head, and I checked this at the standings, that when they started playing the Diamondbacks last season, they were over 500. It's like the last time that the Marlins were over 500 last season, got swept by the Diamondbacks and nearly got swept by them again. But that it's never really recovered from that in the standings. Obviously, lots of other stuff happened too. A big part of that was injuries, but that was a real turning point for the season last year, was when they started playing a Diamondbacks team that was not supposed to be that competitive last season. And this squad is much more impressive.
Speaking of Diamondbacks teams, like we talked about, that could become competitive, as Sean just mentioned, another piece that I didn't mention when I was speaking before about the young talent is another Marlins connection of Ivan Melendez, who the Marlins drafted. And then, of course, he declined and went back to school, and now he's on the Diamondbacks. So, man, like I said, and like Sean just said, this is a team that could be really, really good. Maybe not this year, but this is a team that could be. They have so much talent in the minor league system and so much young talent on the major league team. They're going to be good in the future and go back to the World Series at some point, I think.
Yeah, talking about this lineup in particular, Avi Garcia is back for the first time in 5 days after being out with his hamstring issues. Let me get some confetti for Avi to celebrate that he's coming back after that time off, and immediately put near the middle of the lineup. Once again, it is against a left-handed pitcher, and to me, if you're going to use him, then you might as well use him when he has the platoon advantage. This is the first time that Jazz is not starting a game and not in center field, so that's why you have DLC starting in center field for the first time this season, after doing obviously a little bit of it last year and a little bit the year before. And on the D-back side, Ketel Marte, he was coming off like kind of a disappointing year by his standards. And but they have a lot of faith in him, obviously, by continuing to bat him at the very top of the lineup to this point in the season. And I think Nick Ahmed, I think he missed most of last year with an injury. He's a guy that has been really excellent defensively in his career when healthy. But yeah, he only played 17 games last year. So for now, he's like kind of a part-time platoon player for them. But when he's on, he's one of the better defensive shortstops in all of baseball. All the way at the bottom, you have somebody in Alec Thomas, who's, again, somebody this past offseason that you could have pointed to and speculated like could be a trade fit for the team if they sent some pitching to Arizona and got that center fielder back in return, instead of having to, as we see right here, having to like force fit Dela Cruz into that position as well. And the guy at the bottom of the Marlins lineup, in a very small sample, he is taking a lot of crap. Garrett Hampson, who has not reached base yet at all to this point in the season. He played plenty at the major league level for the Rockies last year. So, and he has these skills that really matter in terms of playing defense up the middle and the way that he runs, and that he's still relatively young. Like, you could see like how they can value him in a particular role, but how much patience do we have for Garrett Hampson to have a roster spot on this team before they start looking at a more creative solution within their own farm system to like fill out the roster?
I'll take it. 0 is what I would say. I don't understand why this player is on the team, other than the fact that he can play both infield and outfield is the only thing that I would say for him. But so can Charles LeBlanc. So they have guys that are performing at the minor league level that should be here. I know Hampson made an impression in spring training, which is great. He's gotten his chance so far in sparing time, I would say. Maybe they're just trying to give him a little bit more of a shot before they go to another option. But they have guys in AAA that don't belong in AAA. The main ones I would point to would be Charles LeBlanc and Jordan Groshans. That should be up here over Garrett Hampson. So I guess they want to give him a little bit more of a shot. I guess that comes tonight, or starts to come tonight with Jazz out. He's playing at second base. This guy continues not getting on base. It's going to be a quick hook, I think, or at least it should be.
Yeah, development would be the only argument, but as Alex said, those two guys, I don't really know how much finishing they need. Avi's in the lineup for his contract. Garrett, he doesn't really have that excuse. I think it'll be a quick exit if he doesn't hit this weekend.
Yeah. I'm pretty surprised because I don't think he had like a great spring either, in my opinion. I know like whatever, he was fine, but I didn't see a great spring training from him. I don't think he impacts the ball offensively at all. I think our season preview thing was over 0.5 home runs for him. I think it's going to go under. I think Eli said over, but I'm surprised they don't have Peyton Burdick up here, for example. I know he doesn't play the infield, obviously, but just the other guys raking right now. You sort of want to call someone up while they're hot. You don't want him to cool down and then call him up. So I thought now would have been a swell time to maybe bring him up, but who knows?
It seems positional flexibility is the only excuse, honestly, because he plays both infield and outfield, like I said. But yeah, you're right, Isaac. If they need an outfielder, it has to be Peyton Burdick. There's been a lot of scrutiny about Avi, of course, but as Sean said, he has the contract, and there's been scrutiny as well about Jesus Sanchez, but he's out of options. So there's scrutiny all over the board there for why they don't have Peyton Burdick here. But Hampson has that positional flexibility. He plays the infield, and Burdick doesn't play the infield, and LeBlanc can do it in the outfield, but not in center field. So the positional flexibility seems to be the tipping point here.
Yeah, and Burdick can play center, so it's like.
Yeah, but he can't play second base, so they want that more utility-centered guy. So that's what it seems to be the tipping point here as to why Hampson is here, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a trickle down of Joey Wendell getting hurt, and then Birdie has to be your primary shortstop. So Birdie can't give you that infield-outfield versatility, and that's why you bring up somebody that can to do it. And aside from Hampson, they don't really have anybody else in that particular thing. So the question is whether you talk about Birdie doing normal Birdie things and bring up somebody else to play shortstop. But as Jacob Amaya, not off to a great start this season, although I think he had a decent game last night, but overall not off to a great start as somebody that we hoped would be on the verge of reaching the big leagues. And with Groshans, the idea of playing him at shortstop on a regular basis, I think that's a little far-fetched. Like even if he does be the player that you want him to be, I don't know if he's going to stick at that particular position for a period of time without you sacrificing a little bit on that end. And then besides that, it's Xavier Edwards, where they're kind of grooming him to be a lot like Hampson. He's playing center field almost half the time now at AAA. But how close do you think he is to being ready, Alex, for the Hampson kind of role on this team?
Man, it's like Isaac talked about Hampson, is you just got to see him impact the baseball more is what you really want to see out of Xavier Edwards. I know that's not his main tool, but when you're playing at AAA and you're trying to prove yourself that, yeah, I'm ready right now, you want to see him try to, hit the baseball a little harder, more extra base hits, stuff like that. He's got amazing speed. Yeah, he can play in the infield and in the outfield. You just need to see consistency of contact out of this guy. I don't think he's too terribly far away, honestly. I definitely think we could see him this year for sure. Especially when they have guys like Hampson on the team. Is Edwards ready right now? I think they want to get him a little bit more time and get those a couple more looks of him especially in center field at AAA to prove that he can do it out there, because he's been an infielder most of his career. So yeah, it's just grooming him to make sure that he can play that position and come by a little bit more consistent hard contact is what I would say for Edwards, but I don't think he's far away at all, to answer your question.
And he's off to a very good start offensively. If he hits in upper 200s, you take that. Just slug at least 350, and the Marlins would take it. But boy, can they use Brian Anderson right now? Talk about an infield outfielder. Boy, can they use him. He's actually slowed down considerably. He's won for his last 19, his last few games. So
no. Back to guys that are on the Marlins team. Yes, and I know you're right. I agree with you, Isaac. They could definitely use Brian right now, but it's not here. So for Edwards, what I would say is, man, this guy can steal anytime he gets on. It's top of the chart speed. He's so good at stealing bases. He's so good with his speed, getting jumps. He could get a bad jump and still successfully steal a base in AAA, and I think that would permeate to the majors as well. So gets on base. If he gets on base consistently at maybe even a 330, 340 clip in AAA, that could translate to maybe a 300, and he could steal bases and come off the bench. You take it.
That particular thing is going to be a storyline in this series that we didn't touch on, is the D-backs as a base running team. Early in the year, especially that first week, they were going crazy with how often they were stealing. And even now, they've attempted 18 steals and they've been caught one time. And I bring that up because the Marlins themselves are not particularly good at controlling the running game, especially the guy catching tonight in Jacob Stallings. So I'll go to Ethan on this, on Jacob Stallings. To this point, over a year now into his Marlins tenure, being, I think any way you slice it, way less than he was advertised to be. Yet he's still the exclusive catcher for Sandy. And I think overall, when he's been healthy, he's catching still the majority of the games. How anxious are you for Nick Fortes to kind of leap over him in the catching hierarchy with this team? Or how confident are you potentially in Stallings being better than he was last year?
I mean, I'd say not terribly confident based on what we've seen so far. I think when you had the batting averages pulled up for the lineup today, he was hitting about 118, I think, if I remember correctly. And was I right? Yes. All right.
You
Nailed
were.
it.
Yep.
So, I mean, if that continues, and I mean, I don't know what Fortes is hitting off the top of my head, but I know it's better than that. And I know that he's just looked a lot better at the plate and has been a lot more productive. I don't know that I would mess with Stallings catching Sandy. Maybe if unfortunately Sandy's start from last time carries over, then maybe think about it. But I don't think I would mess with that. But other than that, I think you've got to start giving Stallings Fortes maybe sort of reverse where they are right now. I don't know the specific distribution off the top of my head. I would guess just on what I've seen, like it feels like Stallings is probably catching 60 to 70% of the games versus Fortes catching the other 40 to 30%. I personally would like to see that probably reversed. That would be my way to go with it.
I'm back. Anybody else feel strongly about Fortes like finally getting an opportunity? To be fair, Fortes actually isn't hitting particularly well early on this season either. I think that's one thing to point out is that there's still something that he needs to prove offensively before people get carried away with these JT Real Muto 2.0 comps. And that's my general thought is that even though I think it's clear that Stallings is on the decline compared to what he used to be, Fortes himself is still like in this phase where we don't entirely know exactly what his true talent level is, even though there are flashes. The overall production, aside from the first month and a half or so of like last season, he was like, if you want to like really zone in on it, like there's still some questions as to exactly what he's going to be and whether he's necessarily what you want in terms of a primary catcher for a team that's like really feels they're close to competing.
Yeah, I think you're right that they're kind of at opposite ends of their career, where Fortes is just starting and then Stallings is kind of nearing his decline from where he was previously. What I would say is I would take the future of Nick Fortes over the future of Jacob Stallings, and I want to see the future of Fortes over the future of Stallings. So that's what I would say. I know Stallings does good work calling guys, but with the advancement of technology and everything else, I think Fortes is going to be fine as a defensive catcher. I think his arm is good enough. And yes, I know I say that, and he was not good, this last series with throwing balls over Jazz's head and everything. I know, but I think that he's good enough to stick at catcher. And I think his bat is the potential of his bat is worlds and way better than Stallings, outside of maybe these week-long spans where Stallings turns it on like he did at the beginning of last year. And I guess we hope that he's doing right now. So, yeah, that's what I would say. I think I would stick to the offensive stealing of Stallings and the fact that he can hack it at catcher over seeing an aging Stallings in there more often than not, as Ethan alluded to.
Same. You've got to go with the offense. This isn't starting Stallings as much as they have in the past that are still continuing. That's a luxury you have if you're an offensively deep roster. If you have lots of pop, and then you can just have that, one just kind of more defense only spot. But they need to scrape all the offense together that they can to, put their best effort on the field. And Fortes supplies that much more than Stallings does right now. So I think that split is right. So if we're just breaking into 5 starts, then Fortes really needs to start being 3 out of every 5. And if he could prove it, then maybe we could even push beyond that. But give him more at bats too. Get that.
If I'm not mistaken, Fortes has actually started more games than Stallings this year by 2. He started 7 games. They played 13. So I guess they are.
That's because Stallings
being injured, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with that. Like that's the only reason he caught Sandy is because he was injured, right? So yeah, I
forgot about that.
I definitely want to see him with Sandy more, even if Stallings is healthy. Which hopefully Stallings is healthy. I'm not saying that I hope he gets. I hope that he stays healthy because I think he's fine as a backup, but I want to see Stallings with all of the staff and not just 3 or 4 members of it. So I would like to see Fortes more with Sandy and, these older starters as well to see how he handles them and how he does. So that's what I would hope to see as the season goes on.
Okay, just a few minutes until first pitch. You know what that means.
This is prediction time.
It's time.
Oh yeah.
Prediction time. As usual, our super subscribers ahead of time sending in their series predictions, how many games the Marlins are going to win, and who's going to be the series MVP as determined by win probability added. That was controversial this last series. Everybody assumed with the eye test that Luis Arraez was the guy. He hit for the cycle, got hits in those other games, but you add it all together in the scenarios that he did his damage, and it was actually Bryson Stott that edged him out. So that really altered where we stand overall in those standings. That is one valuable point that so many people thought they had, and instead, I think it was Daniel, our boy Daniel Rodriguez, who got it done. And a lot of optimism entering this series from our super subscribers on Twitter. Majority of them picking the Marlins to win. We have a couple of sweeps in there. A lot of Sandy optimism coming off one of the worst starts of his entire career, that he's going to bounce back in the confines of Lone Depot Park. He likes pitching on Sundays historically, for whatever that's worth. So we'll see if that goes as well as planned. And I do want to mention that to incentivize even more of you to be our Twitter super subscribers, this weekend only, if you subscribe to us on the Fish Stripes Twitter account for just $2.99 a month, you not only unlock so many perks, including being able to participate in prediction time every single series, but we're picking one of you guys to receive this 11x14 art print of Jazz in teal as pictured here. That's going to one person that subscribes to us over these next couple of days. A special Flashback Friday promotion. To get a better look at it, I have my own shirt right here of that exact same design. That's what it looks like, except you have it on an art print instead of a shirt. But the shirt is available too, and it fits very well from our friends at Breaking Tea.
What the heck? What can I get one? That would go sleep in my crib.
We'll see. If I'm feeling generous, there's enough profit at the end to donate one to one of our hardworking staffers. I'll consider it.
I can go next to my Lil Wayne poster. Shit.
So what we're going to try to do is, I think I'm going to switch up how we do prediction time, make it more concise. So we're going to try to squeeze all this into a Twitter-friendly couple-minute video of us giving our predictions. And I think that should be easier without Kevin here, without the people that like to really, like, I didn't mean to specify Kevin, but just anybody that really likes to, like, explain their stance. You guys, you know what? Carver kind of falls into that same category.
Yeah, I was going to say Carver, bro.
So he's not entirely off the hook either as well. But let me just find our background here, and we're going to go one at a time once I locate here for prediction time. We'll start with Carver, in fact. You know how this works, of course. So just here, how many games the Marlins will win? Who will be the series MVP?
Okay, I'll keep it concise. Marlins 2-1. Jazz Chisholm Jr. with the revenge against Gallen. I know he's not playing tonight, but I'll give it to Jazz. Marlins get it 2-1.
Okay. Now to Isaac. Same thing.
I think the Marlins have a solid chance at sweeping this series, so I think they win all three. And I'm going to go with Avisail Garcia. I think this is a series. I think he's going to homer tonight off Madison Bumgarner, and he's going to win series MVP.
Very bold of you as well. Now to Sean. Same question for you, of course.
You're muted, Papito.
Marlins will win 1 out of 3, and Alec Thomas will win series MVP.
Ooh.
Okay. And to Ethan, in your first ever prediction time appearance. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go with the Marlins 2-1. I almost went with Isaac and predicted the sweep. I don't know that they'll just the pitching they have coming up in the first two games. I have a hard time seeing both of them picking up wins, but or winning both of those games. But I'll go 2-1 with Sandy as the MVP. Big bounce back on Sunday.
Now for me, finally to cap this off, so your emergency host on here on Flashback Friday, I have my prediction was stolen earlier in the stream by our own Alex Krawczyk. I also had the Marlins winning 2 out of 3 and Trevor Rogers as the MVP here in the series opener. Marlins winning this game. If it's the Marlins are ahead, he's going to rack up that WPA, and he's going to get it done. Very much needed for Trevor, considering where he's been the last in the wilderness recently for the Marlins. Let me just make sure I have all this updated for you guys. Round this out. Thomas and for Ethan as well. Goes even more smoothly, of course, when we have somebody else hosting. I'm not doing everything involved with this, but there we go. Perfect. Fist Stripes Live, presented by LaPop. We'll be back on Monday for the Giants series as well. Hope everybody has a good time at the ballpark this weekend. Thanks for supporting Fist Stripes. Consider subscribing if you don't already. So we'll see you next time, and go fish.